Hey there everybody, today is Saturday, May 22nd, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the new interim final rulings that the Department of Treasury released in terms of the PPP forgiveness and how they're going to review the loan applications. But first, please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to keep you guys as updated as much as possible throughout this whole process. I started doing these videos maybe twice a week, but I know that's been too slow, so I'm really going to try to keep updating you guys every day. Also, if you want to see me do a video on something that you're interested in or something that you want more information on, just go ahead and leave a comment below and what your request would be. I'll be happy to consider it and do a video on that. Okay, so yesterday on Friday, the Department of Treasury released two new rulings that kind of solidified some things that were in question in terms of the PPP forgiveness. I'll give you some of the main headlines in these two rulings that might be useful to you. So the first one is that in the PPP forgiveness calculation, you can include bonuses for, because you know that salaries can be forgivable, but bonuses can as well, as long as the salary plus bonus doesn't exceed $100,000 per employee. The next thing, and you might already know this, but the owner employee's compensation is capped. That means if you're a partner or the owner of an S corporation or you're self-employed, your forgivable amount is capped at the lesser of 8 weeks pay, 8 weeks of your 2019 pay, or it's capped at $15,290, which equals out to be $100,000 of pay. Because as you know, $100,000 is the maximum you can use for the calculation of the forgiveness. Moving on, still covering employees here. In terms of full-time equivalency, as you know, you have to have the same average full-time equivalency during your covered period as you did before the disaster. And if you had to lay off people or furlough them, you have to make an effort to rehire them, okay? And this new ruling states that if you make an offer to rehire them and they decline, they will not count against your FTE calculations. But in order for you to exclude them from your FTE calculations, you have to notify your state's unemployment office that you made the offer to that employee. The state really wants to know whether or not you made a job offer, because obviously if someone on unemployment received a job offer and they decline it, then they are no longer eligible for unemployment. So this Treasury ruling states that if you want to exclude them off your FTE calculation, you have to notify the state's unemployment office. Now I'll go into FTE calculations a little bit, not too much, but the Treasury did decide on 40 hours being the full-time equivalency. I know they were bouncing back and forth between 40 hours and 30 hours, but they did decide on 40 hours being 1 unit of full-time employee. And the calculation on that, or how to figure the actual FTE, is just using 40 hours as a baseline, 40 hours a week, and then dividing it by the part-time employee's actual hours. So if you have a part-time employee that works for 20 hours, that means they are 0.5 FTE, 50%, because 40 divided by 20 is, 20 divided by 40 is 50%. So if you have an employee working 10 hours a week, they are at a 0.25 FTE. Does that make sense? So that's how the Treasury Department is suggesting that you calculate FTE. There is an alternative method where you can just use 0.5 for all part-time employees. It's a more simplified way of doing it. You can obviously use the one that benefits you more, but you have to use that one method, either method, across the board for all employees. You can't use the actual method for like a few number of employees and then the simplified method for a different set of employees. The ruling also states that if you have to terminate an employee for cause, rather than laying him off because of the disaster, But if your employee is messing up or they're screwing some shit up and you have to terminate them, this will also not count against your FTE calculation, which is good. There was still question about whether or not you actually have to keep crappy employees on in order for you to get your loan forgiven. So yeah, if you terminate employees for cause, you're not going to be penalized for that. Moving on from employees, we're going to talk a little bit about some non-payroll expenses now. The mortgage principal that you pay is not included in the forgivable amounts, only the interest. And also, the ruling states that if you prepay your rent or your mortgage for several months, that also can't be included in the forgivable amount. You have to pay your rent or mortgage on the days that they are incurred. If you prepay them, great, you prepay them, but they're not going to be included in the forgivable calculation. The next thing is EIDL advances. If you get the EIDL advance or the grants or whatever you want to call it, whatever amount that you received will be deducted from your forgivable amount. So from what I understand it, you go through the PPP forgiveness application, and once you go through the entire application, you calculate your forgivable amounts. You'll subtract that final amount by your EIDL advance amounts. That's how those two are intertwining with each other, the grants and the PPP. The last thing on forgiveness that I wanted to mention is that you have to maintain these records for at least 6 years, because it seems like the SBA may be able to audit your records for up to 6 years. And if they have suspicion about some foul play or whatever, or they might just audit randomly, you want to be prepared to have these records on hand. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about PPP reviews. So as you know, the SBA kind of farmed out the entire PPP application and process to banks, lenders, fintechs. And so those individual banks handled their own PPP applications with their existing customers. And from what I've been seeing, each bank gave conflicting information. Each bank gave approved loans that I think should never have been approved. Or you can give the same information to 2 different banks and get approved for 2 different amounts, because some banks were including like independent contractors in their calculations or shareholder distributions, which are definitely not allowed, but the banks were approving these amounts anyway and funding people those amounts. So the SBA will be reviewing loans that they think were issued outside of the guidelines. So just be aware that if you think you got your PPP loan when you maybe shouldn't have, the SBA will most likely be reviewing that, and they will most likely be requesting that money back, and there will be no forgiveness if you already spent it. So please keep that in mind. Like with everything, if something doesn't feel right, or if you think that you are cheating the system in some way, it most likely will come back and bite you in the ass. If you have any doubts, contact me, contact your lender, and I can try to walk you through it and see if you got your PPP loan legitimately or if there was something weird going on there. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching my video. Please hit that like button if you thought this was useful, and please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to keep updating you as much as possible. And also join our Facebook group to keep updated more frequently. I'll have a link below in the description, and also link the 2 interim final rulings from the Department of Treasury in the description if you want to read those yourselves. But for now, have a good weekend. Take care. I'll see you next time.